everyone, and welcome to USA Global TV, home of Talking Heads. And hello to our friends listening on Business Talk Radio. I'm Dr. Jacalyn Kerbeck, and our show is The United Kitchens. And as the clock is ticking and the countdown continues, we are one show away from 1,000 episodes on Business Talk Radio. That will be our next show, The Listening Mentor. Our show right now is with the celebrity chef, friend, and colleague, wonderful, beautiful woman there in the great state of Texas. It's Ricki McKenna. Welcome.
Thank you, Dr. Jacalyn, and welcome everybody. Morning, noon, or night, whenever you're here. Thank you so much.
Well, it's so lovely to see you. And I loved what you were wearing last week, Peach, and I love this blue. You have colors that are they're just so welcoming, and so they make you smile. They make you feel good.
I hope so. I like people smiling in my kitchen.
So, Ricki, I know you've got some wonderful tips for us today. You're whipping up something amazing. I'm very interested for you to share with our audience. We always have new people who are joining us. Let's have a little bit of information about your background and why you're so passionate about nutrition, having fun when you're cooking, and also sharing your wonderful recipes with the world.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Jacalyn. I am Ricki McKenna, and I am a certified nutritionist, have been for almost 22 years now. And my reason for, I guess, my raison d'etre is I love to cook. I love to make good food, healthful food, and to share it. Both of my children are marvelous chefs on their own. It's been an adventure in cooking. I have to say that. And as a certified nutritionist, I do tend to do things that are more healthful, hopefully, so that people understand, because food is the key to your health, bar nothing else or anything else. It is what makes you tick. And it also is what makes you talk if you're in trouble. So food is the key to your health. And in saying that, I try to, as I say, prepare things that are pretty good for people, but they also have to taste great. And that's the part that's fun. And the taste is, again, up to you.
Thank you, Ricki. I really love what you just shared, and I want to tie it back to a show that we have. It was yesterday. It's called The Secret to Timeless Beauty. And one of the things that I've learned, and that you're going to share more about, is that what we put in our body really reflects on our skin. It reflects in our mood, in our attitude. And so nutrition is something that we should all be concerned with. And I'd love for you to just share a little bit in your expertise about how nutrition is linked to the skin.
Oh my gosh. Well, first of all, the skin is your largest organ. We all have organs inside, of course, kidneys, heart, pancreas, and so on. But the things that affect those are shown on the outside because your skin is the largest organ. You know, if sometimes you get a skin cream and you put it on and you get a little redness, that's reflecting what's going on outside, but it also sinks inside. So it's a combination of things, and your skin shows not only from the things that you eat, but your attitude, the weather, all the environmental things, environmental toxins, because unfortunately, most of us, especially in a place like Houston or in London, we live in a toxic soup, and our skin is affected by it every day. And so if you can do nothing else other than protect your skin with certain creams that work for you and that harmonize with your skin and your system, feed yourself well, because that shows on the outside. How many of you have ever had a food and you had a rash after you ate it? I know that's a horrible thing to think about, but there are things such as psoriasis and things like that that affect the skin on the outside as well as from the inside. And it's foods. So does that answer your question?
Yes, that definitely answers my question. And Ricki, as you know, when I was trying to find pictures, I have been diagnosed with eczema, facial eczema, and scalp psoriasis. And I was injecting myself with this drug called Dupixent for almost 2 years. And I started to really analyze during the pandemic what I was eating. And I noticed certain foods that I would eat, I wouldn't feel flush, when your skin turns red and it's hot. I wouldn't feel that, but my skin would be bright red. And in between my fingers, they were bright red. So I started writing down everything that did this to me. And so I realized without going to a doctor, I already had all the allergy tests, but that I'm allergic to gluten and I'm allergic to avocados and melons. So I have a list now. And now I stopped using that medication about 2 months ago, thank goodness. And my skin doesn't turn red anymore because I'm watching what food I put in my body.
Exactly. And interestingly, just the other day, I've done research on this, of course, as a foodie, but I was reading about how gluten affects our thyroid. Gluten can actually affect the thyroid in the way of antibodies. And so, especially with women, and I'm just concerned with menopausal and postmenopausal. There's a lot of things going on in our bodies that food definitely affects. And gluten and dairy, unfortunately, are two of the things that may be affecting somebody in a harmful way, or at least in an adverse way. And if you're having problems with your skin, if you're having digestive problems, especially, one of the first things I suggest to my clients is to, at least for 7 days to 10 days, take yourself off of wheat or any other gluten product. It's usually wheat, barley, and rye, as well as take yourself off of dairy. Now, one thing I hate to give up, and it's probably the only thing I use dairy, is my cream in my coffee. And this is half and half, which is going into our recipe today. But those two things, unfortunately, can affect us adversely. So, and
absolutely.
Yeah, and when somebody says to me, well, what can I eat? There's an awful lot of food out there that does not contain gluten nor dairy. And there are many dairy substitutes now. I prefer almond and coconut milks. There's hemp milk. There's all kinds of different milks. I'm not a fan of soy, but I like the others very much. And we have completely switched over to almond milk for most things, and coconut milk. And as far as gluten-free, good grief. There are gluten-free products all over the place. I mean, breads, cakes. I have to show you something. I finally found a gluten-free flour. I'm keeping my fingers crossed because it comes from Costco. I'm not giving them a plug, but this is where I found it. It's a gluten-free all-purpose flour. And it's by a manufacturer that I know has good products. They're a quality manufacturer. Otherwise, I use almond flour almost exclusively for my baking, almond and coconut flour. And I have to tell you, I've had no complaints about my muffins or cupcakes or anything that I use those in, rather than gluten flour.
I love the fact that you have all these alternatives for people who maybe they know they have an allergy, or maybe they don't even know. I was able to find one of the pictures, and I know it's going to be horrific, people. So I'm just being transparent. This is an example of what my skin looked like when I was eating gluten. And so it would stay like this for a week or 2 weeks, and I still had to broadcast. So I became pretty good at being able to cover it up with makeup, but it hurt, it itched. So food choices really can have an impact on your skin.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's one other thing I'd like to add. It's not necessarily someone who has celiac disease, or we call them, they're celiac, who is unable and really should not eat any kind of gluten. But it's people with what's called a gluten sensitivity. And if anyone's interested in further information about that, I would be happy to work with you on an individual basis. My phone number and my new, it's still in the works, website is on the banner. There's a doctor by the name of Tom O'Brien, Tom, OBO'Bryan, who I consider my go-to guru on gluten sensitivity and anything to do with gluten. He's absolutely amazing. He has been studying it and working with it for decades. And it's not a fad. He's the first one I ever heard say, if you're celiac or even gluten sensitive, all you need is a fingernail slice worth of the gluten to affect your system. So it's not, oh, I can eat a little. Nope. Tom O'Bryan, Dr. Tom, I believe it's the doctor. I'm trying to remember his website. I think it's Dr. Tom or the doctor.com. I'm not sure. It's Tom O'Bryan, and I would absolutely recommend him.
Well, thank you for sharing that celebrity tip. We really appreciate it.
So we've got to get our onions in the.
Yes. So, Ricki, I'm going to turn the show over to you. I'll be here interjecting. Tell us what it is you're going to be preparing for us today.
Okay, today we're going to have sweet onion pudding. There are two sides for whatever dinner you're making or whatever luncheon you're having. Two sides. One is sweet onion pudding, and yes, it is on onions, and it becomes a pudding. And the other is my favorite thing to make is apple cranberry sauce. So you can serve either of them hot or warm or cold. And so we're going to start. I've already caramelized my onions, and I have a picture to show you so that you can see how full the pan was. If my phone will cooperate. Okay. I'm going to hold this up and hopefully people can see it. Can you see how full the pan was with onions? Those are sweet onions. And caramelizing means that you cook them or saute them and they're done in butter until they get golden brown. So here's this great big pan that they were in, and they've cooked down to this. And I'm going to put them with their butter in a bowl. And then we're going to add the rest of the ingredients to do the pudding. But the first thing you have to do, and it takes about 20 minutes to half an hour on a medium-low heat or a medium heat to caramelize them. So there they are in my bowl, and boy, do they smell good. And the other ingredients that we're going to add, I'm going to finish. I happen to have Parmesan Reggiano, and I'm going to finish grating it. It's about 1.5 ounces, which I measured earlier on the scale that I have. And we're mixing in the Parmesan cheese with some cream or half and half. I'm using half and half. It actually calls for whipping cream, but I found that makes it really, really thick, too thick. So carefully grating the rest of the Parmesan without grating any part of my fingers or nails. I should have 1.5 ounces of Parmesan cheese to mix in with this. And we're going to mix. All right. It calls for, most of the recipes that I have call for sugar, especially when it's something like this, which is a sweet onion pudding, and you buy the sweet onions. They're specified as sweet onions in the grocery store. And they were so strong. It's a good thing I did them earlier because I was literally crying. I figured I'd have to redo my makeup because they were so strong that the tears were streaming down my face. Okay, we've got about, I guess it's about half a cup of the Parmesan grated. And as you can see, I prefer to grate my own. We're going to add about a tablespoon of sugar, but I've used monk fruit sweetener. So we're going to mix that together.
Ricki, just a quick question. What's a good thing that people can do when they are cutting onions so they're not crying?
Have somebody else cut them.
Okay.
Actually, you can actually do it under cold water, run your hands under cold water. But it really, I've never actually found anything other than a fan blowing in the opposite direction that will help that. And I back up a little bit when I do it. And I had left one out to show you how thinly I cut them. These are cut, I cut the onions in half first, and then I take them, I slice them really, really thin. And if you have something called a mandolin, which is a slicer, it makes nice, even slices, and that might help. But you can still run your hands under cold water while you're doing it. That should help. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is whip together my eggs. We're taking 3 eggs. And I happen to use organic eggs because I like them. And I find that, yes, the egg shells are strong, which to me is good because it protects the eggs. And I'm going to take a whisk and put all that together in my bowl, which is kind of fun. There we go. And actually, there we go. I find a whisk is absolutely wonderful for mixing almost anything, and especially dry ingredients when you're mixing flours and you want to put in the baking soda and baking powder. So right now I've got my Parmesan cheese and my monk fruit sweetener, which is very much like sugar, but it is totally calorie free. And I'm going to put in a teaspoon of baking powder, if I could open it. Oh, and one of the tips I think I gave before is when you have something to level off, can you see the half of the top that's in here, the little foil thing? Just use that as your leveler. That's why I keep it in there. It's a great thing to have in there. So I'm going to mix up the egg, the Parmesan cheese, the baking powder, and then we are going to add some salt. If I can find my salt. Here we go. It's usually about half a teaspoon of salt, so we'll just do a pinch there. This is lovely. And I'm going to put my Parmesan cheese that's in there. Excuse me, my cream. We need about, let's see what it calls for. 1 cup of whipping cream. So let's measure that. We'll just be official and measure it. This is actually half and half rather than whipping cream, which is going to make the pudding not quite as thick as it might be if you use whipping cream. So I'm going to add that in gradually. And I have a 9x9 square baking dish that I'm going to take some of the butter. By the way, these get caramelized in 8 tablespoons of butter. And what I like to use, if I don't have wax paper handy, is just half a little paper towel. And make sure you grease the corners well in your pan. And I'm using butter this time to do that, not oil. You can use oil. But as I say, make sure you get the corners so it doesn't stick. And of course, all the bottom. And now I'm going to take the, all right, we have this onions in there. I'm going to stir it in a little at a time. And this time I'm going to use my spoon, because otherwise the onions get caught in the whisk. So we're going to use the spoon and mix everything together, the onions, the half and half, and the Parmesan cheese, and the eggs, and everything else that went in there. Let's see, did I miss anything? Nope, I think we have it all. And here's how our caramelized onions and the cream looks. And I'm going to pour it carefully into the baking dish once it's mixed. Make sure I fill it up. And make sure you get the onions distributed evenly through the pan. As with anything that you bake in a pan such as this, and just spread them out. I wish you could see this. I hope you can see this. And this goes in the oven. Which the oven's at 350 degrees, which I think is somewhere around 120 something in centigrade. Not too sure of that. You might want to check that. Now that we've got that in there, I'm going to time it because we need at least 30 minutes, 30 to 40 minutes for this to come up and be, and it will raise. If you've ever made a quiche or anything else that you put in the oven, like baking, it does rise. It's beautiful when it's finished. I'm going to take my apples, which I've cut up and I've cored mostly so we can make the applesauce. And I'm not going to make my applesauce completely as I usually do because it's going to be combined with the cranberries. So I want the apples a little bit chunky. So I'm going to cut, and I haven't peeled, by the way. They're completely scrubbed. My mantra is scrub, don't peel, because much of the nutrition in apples or any other fruits is in the peel. I'm going to chop it up fairly fine. I don't usually do them quite as small as this, but I'm going to do this so maybe they'll cook a little faster. And we'll just chop it up at random because they're all going to boil down. And I have my pots of water already waiting for both my cranberries and my apples. But of course, the apples take a lot longer to cook than the cranberries, so they go in first. So for your applesauce, simple, simple, simple. It's apples, water, and if you like, I like to put in a cinnamon stick to cook with the apples. But since we're doing cranberries, I'm going to leave the cinnamon stick out this time, and I'm not adding sugar. There's really no need to add sugar if you're using something like a Fuji or an apple that is quite sweet on its own. So let's see. Okay. All the things that I do usually smell good as they're being done, which is wonderful. It gives you an appetite. So while I've got lots of apples here, I use 2 of my Fuji apples. And as I say, I wouldn't normally cut them up quite this fine or small, but I want them to cook a little faster. And so I have probably 3 cups, 2.5 cups of apples. And I'm putting them on a burner, and the larger the bottom of the pot is, in other words, the same size as the top, the more your food reaches the bottom. There's about, I used about 1/3 of a cup of water in there, which is already boiling. And I'm going to cover this and put it back up to high. And now, woohoo, that's hot. I'm going to take my cranberries. I have an 8-ounce package of organic cranberries. And by the way, the apples should be organic as well. And we're going to give them a rinse. And if you find any stones or any mushy ones, take them out. Awesome. You want your cranberries to be firm to begin with. All right. And if there's anything else floating in there, please remove it. Yep, there's another mush. Okay, I think we've got it. And I'm going to take my pot that has, again, this one has about 1/4 inch of water in it. I may add a teeny bit more, but you don't want to put the water up to fill the pot because otherwise you'll have absolute water, you'll have cranberry water instead of sauce. The cranberries have enough juice in themselves, as do the apples, to create, you just want them bubbling. And as you can see, I don't have anything else in there other than the water. And we've already got them. The apples are starting to boil. So, Dr. Jacalyn, if you have any questions, I can give people the recipe right now. I will write it. And you know what?
I think that's, yes. So I did have a couple of questions when you were talking about the cranberries. You said smush. What if they have like a little change of color in the skin?
Good point. Yes. You'd have to go through them a little more carefully than I did. But if they do have a change of color, they come, basically they're red, but they do come, some are darker, some are lighter, and sometimes they're spotty. And the spotty seems to be okay. I've never had a problem with that. And so what you have to do with the cranberries is they're on high, and they will start to pop when they're starting to really cook. So that's when I turn the heat from high to medium high or to medium, depending on your range, you know, whether you're using gas or whether you're using electric that is super hot in spots or whatever, and turn them down and let them simmer maybe 10, 15 minutes. Here we go. Let's see, my apples are also boiling. If you could smell this, I wish I could put the smells through the screen.
I wish so too. I'm going to say hello to a couple of people. Hello to a new viewer on Twitter. I think your name is OzCan19.
Oh my goodness! Hold on, we've got a problem here.
And we're also going to say hello to Barry Katz, and anybody else who's out there and want us to know that you're here or mention your name, please do put something in the comments. That would be great.
Oops.
What's going on there, Ricki?
Well, something I had in the oven as safety guards are now on fire. Just a minute. I have a little emergency here.
All right, folks, these types of things happen, right? They happen at home, They happen anywhere. So you just have to keep a cool head.
This is interesting. This is a silicone guard for the edge of the rack. And one of them slipped off as I put that in there, and it must have hit the element and was on fire because I noticed there was smoke coming out. So this is a good lesson in keeping an eye on your oven. And I will not use the silicone things anymore. One of the other things I'm going to do is I'm going to take the little bit of almond flour that I forgot to put in, which happens occasionally, and I'm going to sprinkle it on top of my pudding here and mix it in a little bit.
And Ricki, while you're doing that, one of your friends says hello. Cynthia who? Is that how you say your name? Who? H-U?
Yes. Hi, Cynthia.
Hi.
Cynthia's going to join us. She's a marvelous chef. And she's going to be joining us one of these sessions, but we're not sure which one.
Yay. Welcome, Cynthia.
And she has another program on that's wonderful to watch as well. So we do need to get her on here. It's called Live and Eat Colorful. She's also.
You heard it here, Cynthia. We're beckoning you, calling you, Cynthia.
Yes.
Come, Cynthia.
Yes. Okay. So, well, now that we fixed that little emergency, oh my goodness, there's. Okay, let you see this just for. I don't know if you can see. Just a minute. Let me grab a towel. Always have towels in your kitchen, real towels, because if God forbid there's a fire in a pan that's got oil or something on it, and I'm turning the cranberries down. It's interesting as a live show, isn't it?
Yeah, that's a great tip, Ricki. Tell us more about the towels.
Okay, towels. If you're flambeing, and I know Simon used to do that on purpose, but you keep an eye on it. But if something decides to flambe itself and it's unintentional, you want to take a towel and smother it. Do not put water on it or spray it with anything. Smother it. So that's, I mean, you can save yourself a lot of problems that way.
That's a great tip. I have a question about a further question. So, does it matter what the towel is made of? Should it be like a thick terry or cotton?
Good point. This is a thick terry cloth. It's almost like a bathroom towel, and you can see what I picked up from inside there. It's charcoal, and I've got charcoal and stuff on the outside here. That I don't know if you can see it, but it's ashes.
We can see it, and I'm glad that you caught it. Ricki, I think another really important tip for people, because I wonder about this, is about pot holders. Pot holders don't last forever, and they get thinner and thinner as time goes by. Do you get rid of them at some point? Like, when do you make the decision, and what kind of pot holders should you get?
Well, I like the ones with fingers, and of course this one's a kitty cat. And I also like gloves because some of us tend to sometimes hit our wrists or the bottom of the arm of your forearm, and that hurts. It burns. So these are two examples of different kinds of pot holders. One has the thumb underneath it, one has it on the side. And then, of course, I have these, which you can stick your hand in. And they're actually, most of these are cotton. I did have one that I did throw it out. I was given a gift of one that was silicone. And silicone works in most cases, but I'll show you what happened here. These are silicone.
Now, what was that?
That was, you know how the rack has an edge that you pull?
Yes.
That wrapped around the edge to protect your arms. So
and it just burned up.
This is protection.
Wow.
Yeah.
You saw it here live, folks.
If somebody offers you a gadget like that, and I love gadgets, I am absolutely in favor of gadgets, but I've just learned something about this, and I didn't think silicone would burn, but obviously I was wrong.
I want to compliment you, Ricki, for how calm you were. We could not have been able to tell that there was an actual fire, an emergency going on there.
Well, I'm going to check it again just to make sure. Okay, I'm going to use my light this time. Okay, it seems to be, because you really shouldn't open the oven when you're baking something because the temperature drops immediately. But that's okay. I'm glad I did. And you know,
we're going to change the name of the show to "Things Are Really Heating Up."
You know what's interesting, Dr. Jacalyn? I know that you are a person of, you use your intuition, and I do what I call intuitive cooking. And I do believe that things happen for a reason. So something like that, I forgot an ingredient. Literally, I forgot to put the almond flour in. It calls actually for some kind of all-purpose flour. And the little almond flour, the bowl of it was sitting here. So I decided to go in and open it. Had I not done that, that thing might have just gone up. But I mean,
wow.
You know, as they say in Mexico, gracias a Dios. Because as I said, there's always a reason for things that happen. And I'm really very thankful that I forgot the one ingredient.
I am too.
It would have done fine without it because I've cooked it. I've done this recipe before without the flour. But there must have been a reason. There it was.
Well, and Ricki, as a nice segue from that, and I don't want to distract you from your cooking, but if you can answer, what about cleaning the oven? Ovens have, they're self-cleaning. I find that they don't really do such a great job. And then if you're trying to be environmentally friendly and not use toxins and, all kinds of aerosols, what are some tips for actually cleaning the inside of the oven and the cooktop?
Well, I am a fan of the self-cleaning oven. What it does use is a lot of electricity because you heat it up. It heats up over 500 degrees. And that actually burns stuff off of the walls. I have used oven cleaners, and there are a couple of things. I think baking soda is one of them. combined with, I tell you what, I have a book that it just occurred to me. It's about vinegar and all the uses of vinegars. So I'm betting that there's something in there. And do you have a segue or something that give me 2 seconds to look in the vinegar book? Because that's an excellent question. We do have self-cleaning ovens, which I think is the most efficient way, but you do have to, once that's done, you can leave your racks in and they'll clean the racks as well. But you do have to, I found you have to wipe up whatever comes off the walls that's burned, like the ashes in there. You do have to wipe it up with a sponge or, something to clean it out. So, which is
Good
fine,
tip.
but you don't want to put a lot of smelly stuff. I know the oven cleaners, don't breathe them in. Let's suffice it to say that you don't want to breathe them, anything like that, the chemicals.
Yeah, I mean, for me, and I know you're going to go look for your book. So for me, what I found, my father had very serious lung conditions, and he struggled to breathe for, I think, maybe a decade, and I'll never forget that. So I'm very conscious about what it is I'm breathing, and I try not to use any aerosols. I used to use aerosols for a lot of things. I don't even use hairspray anymore, which is why I look like such a witch today. But
we both have that. That's that Veronica Lake look. And if there's certain people here who don't know who that was.
I know who that was. So you're looking up to see if vinegar has some type of use in cleaning an oven?
Mm-hmm. Interesting. They do have. I've just got to keep an eye on my cranberries here. They're done.
And there's all different types of vinegar as well. And I'm sure there's different reasons to use each kind. I take a supplement called apple cider vinegar. And when I was taking that directly from the bottle, it's apple cider vinegar with the mother. The taste was, whew,
no,
not
you don't
good.
want to take that directly. You've got to put it in something like
I was taking it straight down, just throwing it straight down my throat. And then I read that it could impact the enamel on your teeth. And for those of you who know me, I'm obsessed with a clean mouth. I brush my teeth 5 times a day. I use mouthwash 5 times a day, and I dental floss 5 times a day. So anything that might jeopardize my teeth, I'd say forget it. So now I take the apple cider vinegar supplement, but it has sugar, which really bothers me. It has 15 calories for each of them.
Really?
Yes.
Well, it's either that or put it in some sort of juice, whether it's it's interesting. People have said put it in orange juice, but the vinegar is acidic and the orange juice is acidic at the same time. So it kind of defeats the purpose. And I certainly wouldn't want to put it in milk.
No, and I only drink water and Chardonnay. That's all I drink ever for any reason. So it's definitely not going in my Chardonnay. It's definitely not going there.
Okay, it's a good thing we're on TV. Here we go. Look at that. Oven cleaner, over easy. It is. It's 5 tablespoons of baking soda, 4 tablespoons of white vinegar, and a few drops of grease-cutting dishwashing liquid.
Wow.
That's not toxic. Okay, and you mix them together to make a thick paste. Heat your oven to 350 and leave it on for 5 minutes. And then when the time is up, turn the oven off and spread the paste across the floor and walls or wherever, concentrating on especially grimy spots, and wait an hour, 60 minutes or so, and then scrub with a sponge or plastic scouring pad. And then you can just rinse thoroughly with clean water or full-strength vinegar, dampen a clean sponge, and wipe the whole oven down to prevent future greasy buildup. I did not know that. I'm glad we did this.
That's a great tip.
Yeah. Actually, what I'll do is I'll write this up and I'll send it to you. And if we can post it, how do we do that? And there's another one in here that says a porcelain stove cleaner. So the inside of a porcelain stove, which is rather interesting, or maybe even a pot, you use the white vinegar, borax, baking soda, and dishwashing liquid in 2 cups of water. So it's a little less strong. But yeah, that's great. That's a great idea.
That's good information. And we've got some more comments. I'm going to leave the station for 1 second to go get my apple cider vinegar. So I'll be right back.
Okay. Well, in the meantime, our cranberry sauce, our cranberries have definitely cooked. And I will show you what we have here. Oh my goodness. And as I said, you don't want to put in a lot of water, and we've got them, they're nice and thick. And all that 8 ounces that I filled that with, look at this, how thick it is. It's wonderful. So I'm going to leave that in the pot. I've turned the heat off. And if you like, you can completely remove it from the heat. And I'm going to stir up my apples with my same spoon. Let's see how they're doing. The apples, of course, will not shrink in volume the same as the cranberries did, but they will shrink a little bit. And since I cut them up pretty small, they're cooking well. And what I'll do is combine the 2 of them in the pot, then taste it. What I'm going to do now, since cranberries are tart, is just add a little bit of that monk fruit that I was talking about, or you could use regular sugar. I'll be with you in a second. Here we go.
Okay, I'm back.
Okay,
Sorry.
me too. This is granulated monk fruit. Normally, on a package like that of 8 ounces of cranberries, it calls for anywhere from usually a cup of sugar. I think that that's way too much, so I will use half a cup. And with the 8 ounces, I'll use just a couple of tablespoons, and this is a tablespoon. So I'm going to take my tablespoon and put a couple of level tablespoons of the monk fruit in. Actually, almost a tablespoon and a half. So it'd be like about 5 teaspoons of sugar, and mix that up. And of course, you can always taste it and see how it works.
That's the fun part, the tasting.
Yes. Well, the smelling's pretty good too, but it'll help you with the tasting.
And Ricki, while you're doing that, we do have a question. I think it's from Cynthia. And I just want to share something. So if you ever see something like this, a comment where it says Facebook user, that's because the person's watching from a private group that you have to be invited to. So in this case, Cynthia is watching from Dr. Jacalyn Health and Wellness. So Cynthia, I think there's somewhere on that, in that private group, where you click that it's okay for them to post your name. They have to ask because it's a private group. But you'd asked about supplements. So this is what I'm using now. And again, not as a paid spokesperson. If they want to send me the money, I'll tell them where to send it. So this actually has calories. You're supposed to take this 1 to 2 of them 3 times a day, but each one has 15 calories. So I'm not going to pick up 100 calories for taking this. I just take one of them. And then this is the other thing that I take. This is turmeric curcumin, and our friend Red O'Laughlin talks about this a lot. This has the black pepper in it. This I get from Amazon, and I have it on subscription service, so they automatically deliver it to me. This one I get over at the grocery store. So I think it's pretty prolific. You can find this in a lot of places. So great question. Thank you so much, Cynthia, for asking.
Yeah, and if you want another source for the rest of the vitamins, that's something that I do also. As a nutritionist, I've worked with a company called Standard Process for years, actually since 1985, which is before I even became certified as a nutritionist. And they are the first company to make supplements from food. So that's one of my preferences, is to use as many of their products as possible, because they are so good and they are from food, which helps the body understand where to put them and how to absorb them. So that's my reason for using Standard Process. And we have the turmeric forte, which is actually Medi-Herb. And there's an herbal line, as well as the regular supplements that are made from different foods. And they source wild and only organically grown herbs all over the world. So if anybody is in need of something specific, as I say, I've been using their products since 1985. They also supply education in nutrition as well that is totally unbiased. It's completely nutritionally science-based. So that's the reason I like them. I'm getting rid of this sticky towel.
Ricki, we're going to have another show on essential oils because you can use them to cook as well.
Absolutely.
We just had some new people join us, so I just want to show something else, not in the hopes of making a fool of myself, but it's really important that what you put inside your body, even the supplements that you put in, you don't just randomly start taking things. You have to work with somebody like Ricki. But this is an example of my neck. So I would walk around with my neck like this for 2 or 3 weeks. This is full-blown eczema. And again, it was related to eating gluten. And once I stopped eating gluten, I mean, I'm not even showing the rest of these because they're really horrific. But the point is that what you put in your body definitely has an impact on your skin. And as Ricki mentioned, when you start getting rashes, it's not just what's going on the outside. There's something going on the inside. It's like a warning, like, hello, this should not be coming in here. Right, Ricki?
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting because some people, it's not only rashes. Rashes are horrible. I've experienced very little. I've been very fortunate in my life. I guess I have kind of what my grandmother used to call a cast iron stomach. I can eat almost anything. But what I've found with clients is some of them can't even smell certain things and they will break out in hives, or they will it just destroys their whole energy system. So anything that you put on your skin, whether it's on your hands, your arms, when you get out of the shower, if you put things all over your body, make sure that the ingredients are clean. And here's another plug for another wonderful organization, EWG, environmentalworksgroup.org. You can look them up on the internet. They always they have something they call the Dirty Dozen and the Clean 15. And the Dirty Dozen and Clean 15 refer to fruits and vegetables and certain foods, other foods, that are clean enough to eat. Some should be eaten organic, such as apples, strawberries, spinach, and there's 9 more at least. So that's what they call their Dirty Dozen. It's not that they're dirty, it's that they're highly sprayed with pesticides, herbicides, and the soils may be fertilized with everything under the sun except what's really natural. So that's the reason for EWG is amazing there. They also have a list of skincare products and skincare things such as sunblocks and sunscreens that are clean enough to use, especially for children, and that do not affect most people adversely as far as rashes. But as far as the food goes, that's my first place to look for anything that should be preferably purchased organically. Now, there are some things that are conventionally grown, that are cleanly conventionally grown, that are fine. But as I said, strawberries and apples and spinach. And I was so disappointed to see spinach and apples on that list. But the industry, our industry is, they want things to be so pretty. And sometimes they spray them to keep the animals off of them. I had a sister nutritionist who used to say she would look for the apples and things like, what was it? Other fruits that had crawly lines on them, pears. The skin on the pears that had kind of a line on the outside, which meant that some bug was probably crawling along it but didn't get in it. Which means that it didn't have the pesticides on it. That was her indication.
Fascinating. Wow.
Isn't that interesting?
That's really interesting.
Okay.
Yeah. Something I wanted to add to what you were just saying, which I think is really important because I don't even think people are that aware of it. But you mentioned about smell. And I have a very highly dangerous allergy to airborne shellfish. So that when I'm even in the grocery store, I cannot go over by the shellfish. I don't eat shellfish. I never have, but I love fish. So I have to put a scarf over my face or hold my nose. And if I'm in a restaurant, which I don't really go to restaurants anymore because of this, if they're walking by with a plate of like steaming shrimp or something, immediately I have like 5 seconds to get out of the building building because my throat starts to close off. And I know that people probably aren't even aware that these type of airborne things are out there. And as a result of that, and all the travel I did for my corporate career, I actually retired because of health related issues that from food, ulcerative colitis. Like imagine trying to go on a sales call with your face looking like that. You have ulcerative colitis and you are allergic to airborne shellfish. And since I got away from all of that and started watching what I'm eating and staying away from restaurants, then I've been much better. So
I'll bet. Well,
yeah.
you know, if you think about it, if you're outside, woohoo, it was time for these to come off. If you're outside and the trees are, can you hear me?
Yes. Yep.
We're hissing here. It's my apples and they're becoming applesauce. If you're outside and the trees are shedding pollen, that's an airborne toxin.
Yes.
And so it's the same kind of thing, but that's really your most, it sounds like anaphylactic shock, which is
That's exactly right.
It can be fatal.
Yeah, and you know what? I don't usually do this, but I'm going to a little plug for, if you can see in the corner behind the green screen, that's actually my book. And I detailed everything about why I left my corporate career, and it's because of my health. And that was, a lot of it was related to food.
Wow.
So, yeah.
All right, we're going to make our applesauce, apple cranberry sauce. As soon as I put a little bit more water in there. Now, I could use something like pomegranate juice or orange juice. And I'm old-fashioned enough that I'm using a potato masher. I do have a blender that I can use, but I like chunky food that you can taste, unless it's in a smoothie. So I'm going to take my applesauce, and here's where the apples that I put in before, and you saw how many there were. There's the apples. They've almost caramelized, which means it will bring out the sweetness of them so that I didn't need to add any sugar to them, of course. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take my other one. Fork. Need a fork. Fork. I'm going to take my cranberry sauce and I'm going to take that and put it right in with my apples. So, of course, we will then have apple cranberry sauce. And if you're like me, you'll use a spatula to help scrape the rest of it in, because I don't want to leave any of that good flavor, here we go, in the pot. It's amazing how much stuff sticks to the sides. Here we go. And of course, both of these pots are extremely efficient for cooking because they do have the copper bottoms. Make sure I've turned my range off. And we're going to do a little mix here. Oh, does this smell yummy? And I didn't even put the cinnamon in. Of course, the cranberries are going to color everything, the deep color, but we've caramelized the apples in the applesauce. And we have an absolutely beautiful side dish for turkey or for any meats. It's great with lamb. It's even good with beef, chicken, of course. I'm going to put that in a dish so you can see it. And then we're about to get our pudding out shortly, so you can see how pretty that is. How are we on time, Dr. Jacalyn?
We have about 7 minutes.
Perfect. Okay, yep. We're going to hear a nasty noise when the timer goes off on the range. Oh, that's beautiful. And you can see how cooked down that gets. So if you're cooking for a bunch of people, a large party, you can double the amounts. I used 8 ounces of cranberries and I used 2 Fuji apples. So here's our cranberry applesauce. Isn't that pretty?
Yummy.
And it's steaming, but I'm going to taste it anyway.
Jealous.
I swear I'm going to overnight some stuff to you.
Please do.
Oh my goodness. What a lovely combination, if I say so myself.
As you should.
You know, you got to like what you do. And I absolutely love what I do. And I know that somebody who's working upstairs will probably be smelling all of this and show up shortly. Let's see how we're doing here. We're down to the 1 minute. Oh dear. Excuse me. It's a lot easier to clean things out if you immediately, as soon as you empty it, fill it with water. Hot, cold, or indifferent, as long as you fill it with water so it starts dissolving the stuff.
Ricki, we have some new folks who have just joined us. Can you just share what it is that you are going to be serving?
Oh, yes. Here we go. This is a sweet onion pudding, which is perfect to go with just about anything, as well as apple and cranberry sauce that are fresh, made from fresh Fuji apples and an 8-ounce bag of organic cranberries, which all we did was put a wee bit of water in them. Oh my goodness, this is beautiful. It was worth the fire, almost. Okay. And there's our sweet onion pudding. It's hard for me to figure out how to hold this there.
That's it. Yeah.
It's crispy. You can see the little bit of crispy on the sides. And I'm going to cut into it. It's a little hot. But what you would do is serve it. It will hold together. But remember, it's a pudding. It's kind of like flan, but it's onion. It's sweet onions, Parmesan cheese, cream, and basically that's it. So it's an interesting combination of flavors. And I'm going to cut into it and see what we have here. It's now starting to drop a little bit as a quiche would. Oh, does that smell good? It's like onions and Parmesan cheese and cream, and how can you go wrong? I'm going to take it out so you can see it. Somebody thought I was silly when I bought a spatula that was this big, but it's absolutely a great gadget. Because I can take out a skinny little, oh, isn't that pretty? Little piece of the onion pudding. You can see that it's pretty solid.
So good.
And I haven't tasted this one yet, but we did caramelize the onions, which means we sauteed them until they were golden brown and sauteed them only in butter. I didn't add anything else to it. It was actually unsalted butter. But the sweet onions, and then we mixed it with cream and the Parmesan, fresh grated Parmesan cheese. And it is certainly like a pudding.
You're torturing me, Ricki. You know that, right?
I'm sorry. If we could figure out how to get this stuff through the screen and do besides smell-o-vision, taste-o-vision.
I smell-o-vision. I love it.
Interesting. Sweet onion pudding. Oh, great. You know what I like about it? Between the cream and the onions, there's an interesting contrast of flavors that is kind of sweet and savory, which is absolutely, frankly, delicious. The only other thing I would add is to serve it with some fresh thyme as a garnish. I know you can't really see this, but there's thyme leaves. And the other thing I will do next time I make this is I'm going to take some of the fresh thyme and put it in with the mix, because that'll give it a little more of an aromatic aroma and taste. But the fresh thyme is pretty as a garnish with it.
A meal should be very attractive as well as taste good, right?
Mhm.
Beautiful.
Oh, absolutely. We taste with our eyes first. How many of us have looked at something and said, "Ooh, that looks awful," but tasted it and it was absolutely marvelous?
Yes.
So taste and picture is very much as important as the flavor and the aroma. And we do your smell, sense of smell is the strongest one of your five senses. You know, taste, touch, vision, smell, because it's totally directly connected to your brain. So your nose gets it first. And that's kind of how you can smell something if it's burning in the oven.
Well, you're also a firefighter, so we're pleased to know that you are full service.
Yeah. Thank you so much. So tonight, you know what we're having. We're having sweet onion pudding and cranberry applesauce, just for a change, instead of plain applesauce or plain cranberry, because it's a great mix of fruits. And haven't figured out what's going to be in between. Maybe some fish.
Delightful. I wish I was there for dinner. Just
I wish you were too.
fantastic.
Thank you. And thank you to everybody watching. And if you do have any questions, please call me. The number's on there. I do take phone calls. And if you're going to text, which is probably better to start with, put in something about, United Kitchens so that I know where you're coming from.
All right. And that number for people listening on the radio, it's in the United States, 970-618-7607. And Ricki, you are going to send me the recipe so I can post it, right?
Absolutely. And I'll send you the recipe for cleaning the oven organically, clean, instead of using a toxic spray.
Wonderful. And we have a final comment. I think this is from Cynthia. Thank you for the show. Have a great day. Thank you for watching. And thank you to, I don't know who this is. And I don't know who this is. But thank you so much. Ricki, it's been an absolute pleasure and delight. And we have an announcement for our audience. You're going to be doing a special show on the 20th.
Yes. And I believe we're going to have a guest chef with us from Durango, Mexico. So we'll be bilingual, and either I'll be speaking Spanglish and she'll be speaking Spanish and her husband translates.
Okay, perfect. And remind me, are we coming back next Friday, or the 20th is in place of Friday?
I think the 20th is in place of Friday, if that works for you.
That works for me. See how we work these things out live on the air, folks? We talked last night, but I don't remember. So anyway, we will see you again on the United Kitchens on Monday, December 20th at the same time?
Yes, 12 noon.
Okay, 12 noon. All right,
Central.
or 1 p.m. Eastern.
Right.
Or 6 p.m. Greenwich Mean Time.
All
right.
Yes. Well, thank you all for being here.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Ricki. Thank you. I'll see you again on the 20th.
Hearty appetite. Excuse me. Hearty appetite. Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you, everyone, for engaging and watching. I see you're watching on all the various platforms. If you missed any of the show or you want to see the show again, why wouldn't you want to see it again? Go over to our YouTube channel, USA Global TV, and just click subscribe. And you'll see at the top that says playlists. And all of our shows, we have between 18 and 20 shows a week. They're all divided into playlists. You can look for the United Kitchens, and you can find those shows there. So coming up in just about 15 minutes is our 1,000th broadcast, and that our show is The Listening Mentor. So please do join us for that. I'll be back then with Caroline Heward, and our show is The Listening Mentor, where we give you tips on how to be an authentic listener. And if you think you are a great listener, that could be your ego speaking, because most people are not great listeners. People listen and judge. People listen and try to solve the other person's issue. People listen and interrupt. People listen and completely zone out, they're not paying attention. So we teach you how to be an authentic listener when you have the opportunity to give somebody the space where you actually are listening. You can't do it 24 hours a day, obviously. We give you some really wonderful and powerful tips that will help you be an authentic listener. So please do join us right here it's actually 10 minutes. All right, we'll see you again. Thanks, Ricki. Bye.